This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Welcome back, everybody. In this video, we are going to take a look at the Sigma 14 to 24mm f2.8 DG/DN art lens, which is an ultra-wide-angle zoom that is designed for Sony E-mount and L-mount Alliance cameras. So an ultra-wide-angle zoom is actually a pretty specialty lens. It's for when you need to get a really wide area view into the frame. So this works really well for architecture, tight spaces. An ultra-wide-angle zoom actually comes with an interesting set of design challenges. So first of all, you want to design a lens that stays sharp throughout the entire focal range. So not only at its widest point, but also at its most telephoto point. The second challenge is ultra-wide-angle lenses are just prone to distortion. And so controlling that is really important. And then the third challenge, and this is pretty much a thing with any wide-angle zoom lens, even for like a 24 to 70, is something called field curvature. Field curvature refers to the part of the image or the field that is in focus. And we assume that that field is straight, and oftentimes the case with zoom lenses, you have a little bit of curvature to that, or kind of a wave pattern. And so this will impact your image if you're shooting a group of people that are in a straight line, or if you're doing architecture that has something flat in it, you can have issues where sharpness and contrast tend to drift. So I was super excited to get to use a new modern lens that was designed specifically for mirrorless. For the test shots that you see in this video, I headed over to the old T&P station here in Fort Worth. The station was built for railroad use in the 1930s and features this beautiful Art Deco interior, which was restored, I guess, in the late 90s. And today it's used for commuter trains to Dallas. I use it when I have to go to the airport, but it is a beautiful space and absolutely perfect for testing this lens in terms of detail and resolution with all of the decor that's going on in this room. So the Sigma 14 to 24mm DG/DN art lens is a brand new lens design. So don't mix it up with a previous lens design they had for DSLRs, which is the Sigma 14 to 24mm DG/HSM art lens. Sigma do love their initials. But anyway, anytime you see in their nomenclature the letters DN, it stands for Design Native for Mirrorless. And so what I was really interested in with this lens is the fact that we're taking advantage of a much shallower focal distance from the back of the lens or the rear lens element to the sensor. And also the fact that some of the older Sigma lenses, especially when we went into mirrorless, were DSLR lenses essentially with an adapter stuck in there. So you can expect in this lens, and you do see it, better autofocus performance, better responsiveness. It's just a better lens in terms of ergonomics. It's very well rounded. Optically, this lens is designed with 18 elements in 13 groups. There are 3 aspherical elements, 1 fluorite element, and 5 super low dispersion elements. There's a lot of glass in this lens, but it still is a reasonable weight and handles very well. The front element, though, is extremely large, and so as a result, unfortunately, there is no filter threading. And if you want to use filters, Sigma does provide a mechanism on the back of the lens for making your own or getting them from a third party. You can put them together. It comes with a little frame that you stick in here. It's not optimal, but at least you can use filters in some capacity. Controls on this lens are minimal. You have a ring for focus and another one for zooming. There's an autofocus on and off switch and a dedicated AF lock button. Autofocus uses a stepping motor. It works fairly well and it's extremely responsive. Sometimes non-native Sony lenses feel a hair slower. I did not notice this with this lens at all. The autofocus here is fast and very responsive. So let's talk about one of the design challenges that I mentioned earlier, which is called field curvature. Now, this was a concern of mine before I used the lens because it's actually fairly common on wide-angle telephoto lenses. Field curvature is where that plane of focus is not flat. And so particularly on a lens that is capable of shooting at f2.8, it is possible that if you were trying to shoot something flat like architecture, you can have it where the contrast and the sharpness are going to kind of wave in and out on you. And so I have a method for testing that I want to share with you. I mentioned this in a couple other videos, but I test this by using the Find Edges filter in Photoshop on something with texture so that we can see the field of focus. And in this case, it's just pavement on the street. And what I do is I run several tests at different focal lengths, and I found that there is a little bit of field curvature, but it's actually impressively controlled compared to other lenses that I've looked at, and easily dealt with if you stop down, obviously, to increase that depth of field. But even at f2.8, if you're careful, you're probably not going to experience a whole lot of problems. Like I said, this is actually quite common on on wide-angle zoom lenses, and it's very well controlled here. I want to give a shout out to our show sponsor today, who are the awesome folks over at Squarespace.com. Present your photography using Squarespace's modern professional portfolios. The layouts are completely customizable, and you can use Squarespace's drag-and-drop based backend system, which is really easy to use to present your work the way that you want it seen. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform for building beautiful websites, easily claiming your domain or URL, and creating a custom site that brings your ideas to life. Squarespace is host to a number of other tools, including e-commerce, appointment scheduling, and analytics, so that you can grow your brand and your following. So head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, you can go to squarespace.com/AOP to save an additional 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Once again, that is squarespace.com/AOP, and I want to thank the folks at Squarespace for sponsoring another episode of The Art of Photography. Field curvature looks pretty good, but let's talk about sharpness. So if we look at the MTF charts, Sigma actually gives us two completely different kinds of charts. There is a geometrical MTF. This one is the standard way that most manufacturers measure MTF in a lens. Sigma feels that this one is slightly misleading because it doesn't account for diffraction of light inside the lens. They may be right on that, but since they have a really involved method of recording MTFs for every actual lens that they produce as it leaves the factory and they put them all in a database, they actually supply a second method known as a diffraction Mtf. Now, in either case, you can see that they're both extremely impressive. You see two line readings here. There's one at 10 line pairs per millimeter and the other at 30. We look at the 10 millimeter typically for contrast and sharpness, the 30 for resolution. Both are really impressive. There's a little bit of fall off at the corners and just a hair of astigmatism, but this is really not something that most pixel peepers are even going to see. This is a very sharp lens. And as you can see in these images, the results pretty much echo this at both the wide and telephoto ends of this lens. It's very sharp and impressive throughout the entire focal range. And it is an f2.8 lens, so you can get some bokeh if you really get up on top of your subjects. It looks great, but I feel like sharpness is really the big selling point here. All in all, this is a fantastic option for mirrorless cameras. Sigma have come in competitively with price point. Image quality is awesome and performance is outstanding. I only have two gripes with this lens. The first one is the lack of filter threading, and I understand that it is an ultra-wide angle lens and you're going to have a mammoth front element, and that is going to limit what you can actually put on the lens in terms of attachments or filters, but it's mirrorless, and Nikon were able to overcome this with their 14 to 30 millimeter ultra-wide angle. This is a 14 to 24. I wish there was some kind of trade-off there. I do respect the fact that they allow you to put filters in the back, but it's not really optimal, and for landscape photography, I like to use filters quite a bit, so it's a small complaint, but I think it's actually kind of a big deal. And secondly, so this isn't exactly a complaint that's specifically targeted at this lens, it's more of an ultra-wide angle thing in general, but that is distortion. And I think that Sigma have done a terrific job of controlling distortion in this lens. In fact, they make a big deal of the fact that, let's say you're shooting a beach or something where you have a flat horizon, you can actually move the horizon up and down in your frame and it won't curve, which is very cool. But the problem is in reality, usually you have vertical lines. If you're shooting architecture, you've got buildings, and what happens is if the camera isn't perfectly level at 14 millimeters, those lines will move around. It has the appearance that buildings start to fall away or fall forward on you because it's so wide. Now, you can go into Lightroom, you can go into Capture One, you can do some keystoning adjustments, and you can kind of fix this, but that's not exactly ideal. What I would like to see, and I think that Sigma are the company to do it, is I want to see somebody do a tilt shift lens native for mirrorless. Now, sure, you can adapt a DSLR lens to a mirrorless camera and you can get a tilt shift lens and do it that way, but I would love to see what somebody does with a mirrorless lens, and we haven't seen it yet. This would make architectural photography or any kind of technical imaging where you need to have lines exactly perfect, this would make it a breeze. Anyway, I would love to know what you guys think. I was really impressed with this lens. I thought it was outstanding, especially for an ultra wide angle. It's sharp, it kind of ticks all the boxes. It's available at, I think, a very reasonable price point, but I would love to hear from you. So drop me a comment. If you enjoyed this video, remember to thumbs up and subscribe for more. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, later.